5 that seems really positive with regards to Buddha and him seeming revolutionary in terms of his teaching, and this part that seems negative. I have to say, as a historian, neither of them seems correct. If with all the distractions you can remember what I was just talking about. Neither of them seems correct. In fact, it looks like not long before the Buddha's lifetime, there's a great civilization called the Indus Valley Civilization, which looks to have been very egalitarian. With the drying up of their main river, those people migrated down throughout India. They spread. The Jains founded an enormous women's monastic community as well as men's monastic community before the Buddha's awakening in the same area. There were women wanderers, there were women contemplatives, there were Brahmin women teachers. Brahmins are the class of priests in India. We have these texts not often put forth. So it looks like, rather than thinking that we're on a timeline moving from the Dark Ages into the light, as I certainly grew up thinking as a young American. I grew up here in the United States, and I thought, people long ago were so backwards, and now we're in the process of modernizing everything. It's just all getting better and better, and it's going up and up, and the sky's the limit, and we're out in the universe, and we are. And so to hear the negative things, I wasn't surprised about hearing those about the past. I thought, okay, we're improving, we're getting better, we're doing everything better now. But in reality, it looks like this idea that the Buddha was the very first to do something like this doesn't seem historically true. It seems like he was born in a time and place where that was going on, and with his Great Awakening, there wasn't anything that told him that he shouldn't do that too. In fact, he did. And really, greatly. Many of the traditions that were alive in that time, all kinds of wild and interesting teachings that were around then. Many of them haven't survived. Many of the monastic communities of that time, or the Dhamma heirs of those teachers, their lineage has been completely broken and has passed. Not so for Buddhism. 2,600 years later, here we are now. And 2,595 years after the foundation of our women's monastic community. Also, here we are. And part of this great process that we have happening here in the West. So the negative things that we find attributed to the Buddha also with historic study doesn't look like it actually dates to the Buddha's time. What it looks like historically is that with the spread of Buddhism and with the changing of the times, that patriarchy started to rise really strongly. Within a few hundred years of the Buddha passing away, the West started to rise strongly. Alexander, pupil of Aristotle, invaded India, linking East and West. Aristotle is known for many things, very big in the world of classical education for a long time. He's attributed, the words are attributed to him that, he said that between slaves and women, slaves are better. He actually didn't think that women were fully human. He thought that due to, he had measured a woman as having a lower body temperature than a man. He thought that showed that women were not completely human. And he even had the idea that women didn't have souls. But that the man had the soul, and the soul was passed through the seed, and that then passed into the future males. And that was, what it was to be fully human. And the woman was the earth, so the ground for that happening. So these old ideas of the Mother Earth. So, we have then, at that time, the contemporary West, with Western superpower, best military in the world domination, dreams of world domination, spreading out and coming into that area. And then right around that time, we find for the Jains, we find a rift in their monastic community, with a large number of them no longer believing that women can awaken. Thinking that women had to be reborn as men before they could practice the spiritual path and realize its fruits and its benefits. And we find the Jain community divided. In Brahmanism, where the women used to have initiation, the girls together with the boys, and then they studied, and then all of that, and then they also could go into a contemplative life in their later years. We have the old records of this, and we have new texts called the Dhamma Shastras. These are not Buddhist texts. These are, and that's the beginnings of contemporary Hinduism arising. And we have things very similar. In the laws of money, things very similar to what Aristotle said, coming forth in Indic language from Indic teachers. And then that whole priestly tradition, those who were the priests for the society, developing and spreading these ideas as counselors of kings, making laws. These were legal codes that made it so women were vassal or subject to their father, their husband, and then their son. Explicitly stated, a woman never has any true autonomy or independence in her life. Womankind is not capable of such. Almost an Indian translation of what Aristotle said earlier. And one of the things about Buddhism that people often praise these days, that we find so beneficial now, that I really appreciate, is Buddhism's adaptability. Why do we have Tibetan Buddhism and Thai Buddhism and Sri Lankan Buddhism and Korean Buddhism and the rise of unique American Buddhism, all of them special and unique and different with different cultural characteristics and all of that? And all of this beautiful Buddhist culture that we've inherited because of that adaptability, because of that changeability. So a good part of Buddhism then, in times where the other religious and mainstream social movements were going, as I've talked about, and went that way increasingly over hundreds of years, Buddhism adapted to that. Because as Shari was saying in the beginning, we live in interdependency. All of our lives are connected. We're not, even if we live out in a hermitage on the snowy coast up north of Jenner, in the redwood forest by the ocean, still we're part of this world, and our lives are intimately interconnected. And the Buddha so recognized that, and the system that he made is so about that for the monastics who lived the way that he did. The Buddha, after his awakening, he was a layman as a younger person, he married, had a child. After his awakening, he continued to live as a monk. And those who were attracted to him and experienced awakening on the path. A good number of them, they wanted to live in the way that he lived. Me too. I felt that also. Oh, something about this way of life of the Buddha. As a young girl in northeastern Washington state, out in the back countryside, Hicksville, really deep out of a small town with only a single stoplight even. Yeah? And I looked in the magazine and I saw the form of the Buddhist monastic. I read the books of the Buddha, and that light went on in me. And, something deeply touching me. Something activated that wanted, not only was interested, but wanted to feel and to see and to know and to live those benefits for myself, if I was able to. When I met a friend of the family who had ordained temporarily in Thailand, there was a tradition of temporary ordination for men, also for women, although it's not called ordination in that case. But of temporary monastic life, when I heard about that being possible, from another American friend, I thought, he said it was the best experience of his life. He went to do some work with irrigation or something, like the Peace Corps, and the opportunity was there to stay and to live in a monastery for 3 months over the rainy season, and to learn the moral virtue that the Buddha taught and lived and shared. It's been passed down to learn the meditations and the wisdom teachings. To learn and to live and to practice those in their environment. It's one of the best experiences of his life. And being a young teenager, I thought, that's great. All right, can I do that too? My books are like, maybe after high school. But he said, men can. You can turn up, you can have no money, you can walk into a monastery as a man, and if you want to go forth into the monastic life, all of the Buddha's inheritance will be yours. He said, but it seemed like there's a little bit of a different situation for the ladies. He saw a different situation. Not that there weren't good ladies involved, but I think he had observed, seemed to him at that time kind of like temple servants or not ordained, not educated, not trained, not supported, not valorized, fully valorized in the same kind of way. Very different. What happened? What is that? This is part of how I've gotten into learning about this. On the other hand, then I heard rumor from another friend who'd been down south, north from us, to Shasta Abbey, where they have male and female monks, Buddhist, Zen tradition, completely egalitarian. And that friend's friend had gone and ordained as a female monk there, was living and practicing there. And I heard about that too, and I thought, oh, well, okay, that sounds more like it for my Buddha, But then I wondered, okay, why so different? Why in one tradition is it like this, and in another tradition it's so different? And this is where we get this. This is where we get this history. So for what I was saying about what happened after the Buddha's lifetime, and these changes in the adaptation of the monastic community to its culture, to its society in which it was living, and even the adaptation of the teachings. For a long time we just had oral tradition. Oral tradition is very easy to adapt. Even called to adapt it in a way. To be a good, popular oral teacher, you have to connect with your audience. You have to say what's relevant. Otherwise, next time the room will be empty, right? If you're so far out, if you're so far off. Americans may like that, actually. Like we are into what is rare and unique and different at times. But still. So some adaptation, and then we find variety. We look now, if you were to study what I've studied, then you see, oh, some strands of the tradition seem so positive and so supportive and so radical and so transcendental, like the old records from the Theravada tradition seem like that. Even some of the Theravada tradition commentaries. You look at the commentaries, we see what started happening. We see, rather than people saying the Buddha was so unique in doing what he did, it's so revolutionary, they're saying something different. They're saying past Buddhas also had great women disciples, foremost women disciples. On one hand, their foremost male disciples, two of them. On the other hand, their foremost female disciples, both monastic and lay. We look at the traditions and we see them developing these histories of saying there hasn't only been one Buddha, not just one in the entire history of humanity, but in ages past, also that there have been those who awakened so, and saying they too had such disciples. And as I was saying before, when the mic cut out earlier, those who were fully experienced in the Buddha's teaching and able to communicate it to others, the Buddha's heirs, in all four, male and female monastics, laymen and laywomen, the Buddha's heirs, the Buddha's disciples, to whom he gave his sasana, his teaching, and trusted it and passed it down. Yes, sometimes as monastics we feel we have exclusive right in that. There are some traditions like that in the men's monastic community, also women's monastic community, and it's true. The monastics have passed on the teachings for all of these generations, and the monastics are, if things are going properly, really rightly, they are those who are dedicated to practice and sharing 24/7, freely, as the Buddha himself did. Yeah. So that is something special. As a layperson, Buddhism doesn't put any kind of special real strictures. You're allowed to practice as much as you want to. Whatever you find beneficial in Buddhist teaching, you can put it into practice. You don't even have to become Buddhist to do that. Very free, very liberal in this regard. There's nothing like you have to go to confession once a week, or you're going to do something really bad, and you're going to be out of the group. It's like very, permeable, very, very free. The Buddha taught to everybody, all classes, all walks of life, and maybe some people one time it was something that changed their life. They walked away with that. They did that. Others were also, as laypersons, also dedicated 24/7, really like full on and there for the teachings every day, and really maybe not every day, but often, yeah. So we see that. So different streams then evolving in her story, in history. Some places, women's monastic community, in the environment as it became for women, died out. The thought that women could be equally ordained to men, wear the same robes, just not okay for those people at that time. Other places, very positive. Really the ongoing torch-bearers. So it's like streams within a river. Some of them going, a current going this way and also a current going another direction. And we've had that till this time. We have that to this day in our global, multicultural world at this time. We have that, yeah? So the positive and the negative, the dark and the bright is there. For the ancient history of Buddhism, there is so much that's bright, so much that's positive. The chant that was playing when you came in, that is a blessing chant composed in the Lanatai kingdom for blessing the nation. It is a remembrance of the 13 foremost Bhikkhuni, monastic women disciples, legally, legitimately. Nobody argues about this part. Fortunately, nobody yet has touched this part. To say the 10 foremost laywomen disciples of the Buddha, the 13 foremost, or how many ever. In fact, some texts say 40 foremost Bhikkhuni, women monastic disciples of the Buddha. 4 times more than what the Pali tradition has passed down. The Therigatha, these are the verses of the women elders, the songs of the awakened monastic women. 72 in the canon, in the Tipitaka. Sacred biographies of the women elders, also canonical, another 40. Following in this tradition, when Buddhism made its way into China, they also composed such texts about the monastic women and lay women who were luminaries in the tradition. We have another 40. The Buddha himself, at one time, when he was asked by someone about his teaching and how he felt that it was successful, in what way he felt that it was successful, he mentioned specifically having more than 500 fully awakened Bhikkhuni, women monastic disciples. And according to the textual analyst, that was actually pretty early on in his teaching. By the time of the Emperor Ashoka, for those who were the luminaries who were invited for the consecration of the many monasteries that he offered around his realm, like post offices in every town, together with the many other wonderful things that he did, supporting medicine and hospitals and even animal shelters and things for agriculture and all of these other wonderful things. He was a great supporter of there being monasteries. For the time of the dedication of those monasteries around the then, for the first time, what Alexander couldn't quite do, Ashoka did. Unified India, 84,000 means a big number of monasteries, and the number of luminary bhikkhunis who were supposed to have attended that consecration of those monasteries, according to the text, 96,000. I can't even imagine 96,000 people, and if I think about them all, can you imagine being in a room with 96,000 the luminaries of the Sangha, like us, like this? So it's just mind-boggling. You have to wonder, okay, are they embellishing? Does it really mean 10,000? No. Or does it really mean 900? Even 900, my goodness. Later on in Sri Lanka, as Buddhism spread internationally, we have the records of the women who were ordained, and in other countries, as Buddhism started to spread, more than half of the records of the missions show both men and women being fully ordained. And then in Sri Lanka, sometime into the development of Buddhism, then we have this number again of 86,000 Bhikkhunis who were luminaries of the monastic community at that time. It's like these enormous numbers. For me, actually, when I read that, whether it's exaggerated or not, I don't know. But I mean, there were records show there were a lot of people in some metropolitan areas around that time, like there are now. 1 million in the metropolis happened in those days. At least more than that even. For me, my heart kind of zings. It starts to open. it starts to blossom. That's the affirmation. The Thai people, the Thai Buddhists have been so wonderful about preserving relics of the Buddha's past and the bodily relics of the Buddha himself, making great monuments for these, and of the great Arahantas, men and women. I saw a book that has pictures of the bodily relics of some of these ancient great ladies that I've been talking about. And one elder monastic teacher, master, asked me to use the computer to actually illumine these pictures and sit and meditate with them and just look at them. These are the corporal remains that have been preserved of a good number of these women. I sat with them with the light of the computer screen shining through them. And, you know, as so often happens, it is the mental and physical encounter with great people that activates that greatness in us, that encourages us, that brings out strength, that brings out clarity, that lets us know, and this is, I think, why the Buddha was so clear about having a fourfold assembly and all of them being his heirs. It's like, yes, this is for you too, whoever you are, whatever, whatever gender, whatever race, whatever nationality, whatever age, whether you're a monastic or not, whatever role is right for you in the practice of the path, yes, you can do this. This teaching is like that this is offered freely for you. Those benefits are yours. They are freely and completely yours. And you have my, in this case, the Buddha's, you have my stamp of approval on that. So this gives confidence and encouragement. And for me too. The tradition of women's monastic ordination died out in Theravada Buddhism for long enough that people in many places forgot that it had ever existed even in their country. Like Thailand or Burma, although the records show that there were Bhikkhunis there in the past, the missions where women were fully ordained went there too. In Burma, even up to the time of British rule started. It's a mystery. Uh-oh, the West has happened again. Colonialization. And it's like burning the Buddhist books and this kind of thing to try to, demoralize the people and bring power. And it's a regular tactic. So we have records of Bhikkhunis in Burma up till that time. And then gone. Don't know what happened. I don't know, is there some record that I have to get into, some secret cache of American military records or something to tell me it's easier to get into the ancient stupas these days than it's to get into this. Who knows, maybe there's nothing there, but for some reason disappeared around that time. We don't know why. And now the majority of the people actually think it never happened. They never had it, not part of their tradition. Even might think that it's sacrilegious. It's not right for a woman to think to be ordained. There's something wrong with that. Might even think so. Feminine gender, as there are those who say so today, as Aristotle said, doesn't have what it takes to do that thing, which makes one a fully ordained monastic or a priest. So, as far as I know, I think, and I'm sorry to say it like this, but I think that's really might be more important in lay life. And even there, not everything. As everyone who's lived a longer time in life could probably tell you, that's not necessarily the be-all and end-all of life. Yes. Certainly we find the monastic life for the depths of our hearts. Yeah. So, Tibetan Buddhism also, debatable. When Buddhism went to Tibet, whether there has ever been a tradition of women's monastic ordination there or not. These good ladies here, these venerables, might be ordained as bhikkhunis, bhikshunis, if they went outside their tradition to get the ordination. Or they might be ordained legally and officially as novices, which is a big step up from where millions of monastic women are at in South and Southeast Asia, where cannot even become a novice, not even a novice. Not in this lifetime, not until you're reborn as a man. Sorry to say, tough luck. As far as I know, that was something that came up after this Alexander invasion thing with Aristotle and all of that. Not what the Buddha said. Not that. He was encouraging that we can fully live this path in this lifetime now. If there's more for our spiritual path to complete, then according to the ideas of rebirth and reincarnation, can go on as long as we need in our spiritual path, our path of spiritual development. The Buddha was not saying you have to do that. As far as I know, he himself never encouraged any woman that she has to be reborn in something else before she can practice the path and gain success in it. Yeah, but please understand, I don't think the Buddha was the bad guy in this, and I don't think he was I think he was a great hero. I think he was completely an excellent hero just as he was, but I don't think he was so revolutionary in what he was doing in his own time, in this aspect, because there were quite a few other folks doing it, quite a bit else around. Maybe even we now, after entering into what we're really like, rich burning and these kind of things, that's our contemporary, recent, comparatively recent Western history. We still sometimes have some kind of things like this happening in our world, even in modern times. If you watch the news, it's like how many millions are involved in sex slavery. I received a note that I was looking at this morning from Interfaith Women for Peace, that even in the San Francisco Bay Area, the numbers who are somehow drawn into this area and then caught in sex slavery, astounding. Vast majority women. The really surprising thing is how many women are also what I would say, the perpetrators. But this is what happens sometimes when people, what they're drawn into is like corrupt. If the mind becomes changed by that or accommodates it too much, then they themselves can pass it on and do the same thing to others. Something we have to be so very careful about. As I understand the Buddha's teaching in this issue, as with many other issues, so important for us in human life to develop the awakening of awareness, that we're able to see and know these things in ourselves, these patterns in ourselves, and then able to make conscious, free choice and act in wholesome and progressive ways to stop the cycles of suffering that we've been involved in as much as we can, and to look for another way, to look for what else can be done. Is there another way? Because this is the blackest thing in human life. And I know in places where, where it seemed like, okay, for me, I have this aspiration to live as the Buddha lived, to live his teachings fully, and then if I encounter the closed door, it's like way closed for you. Better luck next life. That is the darkest thing, I think, in human life, is when we see no way. when it seems like the door is closed. When what seems best and truest and most wholesome and most beautiful and what the depths of our heart truly incline to and sing for and what liberates us and gives us life, and it's like our systems and the people around us are like, close that down, turn that off, put it back where it came from. Different kind of like living like a slave. Yes. Slavery, drudgery of human life, turning human life into something far more degraded and perpetuating that for, what is it, unknowingly, inadvertently for oneself and for others. So I feel like, okay, as far as I can tell, the Buddha opened those doors and opened them wide and said, Ehipassiko, come and see for yourself. And so I've made the choice to participate. I don't know how I got so lucky myself. Somehow before it was really possible, I was lucky enough to be fully ordained by Theravada Buddhist monks. I don't know how I got so lucky. But then I was very lonely. Few. At that time, Maya Sobana was not there. Our whole monastic community, I participated myself personally in the ordination of 27 women. At various stages of ordination. So if you imagine all of them, it's not 96,000. Imagine 27 here together. Maybe they'll see on YouTube. If you imagine all of them together, that time, lonely, alone. Not that there weren't other women who wished to do this and who aspired to do this. There were so many. Everywhere I went, east and west, there were those who came to me and said, "You're a bhikkhuni? I never met one before. Are you a monk?" And here, also, even I go to the doctor's office in Santa Rosa, and people ask me, it's like, never seen this before. And wanting to know, could I do that? Yeah. And so before I became a preceptor, before we had any place for women here in Northern California, before the places developed here in the United States, before the places developed in South and Southeast Asia, which they are now. It hasn't been that long since this revival, since the beginning of this renaissance. It's very close to the word Renaissance. But now all of you, having heard what you've heard, should be real Renaissance folks. Do you have an idea of what the Renaissance of this is? That means those 96,000 women who have the aspiration, those 1 million lay renunciate unordained nuns in Southeast Asia who have been called to this life, that they all get to be fully welcomed, fully trained, fully educated. Their aspirations get to be fulfilled, and for all of those people who are hungry for Dharma teaching and hungry for the uniqueness of Buddhist pastoral care, and hungry for the spiritual quality of women who are living this life fully and having that connection in their own lives and being a part of that those 96,000 women become available to them, like the post office in every town. For all who have such interest and inclination. How many towns, how many community centers in the United States this Sunday are having such a lecture where there are like us? Not many. Very rare coming together today. Rare opportunity. Yeah? To have a women's monastic hermitage so close on the Sonoma coast here, rare. It's the only place in the United States still now for the last 3 years we've had a women's monastic community, a whole Sangha come together for the 3 months retreat during the summer, traditional 3 months retreat time, and be together. Only place in the Theravada tradition in North America that has that, and that's only been the last 20 years, and not easy. Our conditions, our living conditions, they're very rustic, very rugged. We're living as the Buddha taught in this monastic discipline, releasing, letting go, working with non-greed, non-attachment, non-clinging. We're off grid. Yeah. Welcome to come see. Beautiful piece of forest, and not with all the luxuries and amenities of the regular home in Petaluma. We're living with what has been offered in kindness and generosity. And like me coming here today, Elad and Marianne asked if I would come. I didn't ever ask how much will you pay me. Yeah? The way the Buddha made it. We, like him, also never asked that question. No hint of that. He was to be a king and then walk barefoot around, for how many years, just from morning until night, day after day, giving freely of the benefit that he discovered, and which so many people are continuing to discover. Modern medicine is being revolutionized by mindfulness. And it's only one of the folds of the Eightfold Path. What else? Freely available. I would like, now this is the thing, if you learn this through modern medicine, you're going to have to pay. I'm very glad that it's available, but how many people can pay for that? I understand at least 40% of Americans, if not more, can't. But for those who are living the traditional way of Buddhist monastic life, you should have free access, whoever you are. If you want to do something to support that and continue that, can. But if you're broke, flat out broke at that time, and you really need that in your life, open door. Following the Buddha's example, this is to give freely, heart of generosity, and we get to know what that wonderful joy is of doing that. Because when that heart of generosity opens up and you feel those benefits, and we live in this kind of way, and we're not trying to get something, but we're happy to freely give something. It's an unbinding. It's a great relaxing, and there is a deep and precious joy in it. I would really like to encourage every one of you. There are the things in our psychology that can say, stop, no, it has to be tit for tat, and you have to calculate everything, and I'm not sure, I might lose something of myself if I give freely, and like that. Many people have that. There are these things like this. I would say, don't be afraid. Let that relax. To know this happiness is one of the precious, precious things in human life. We're wired for it, body and mind, to be able to, just like the happiness and joy, the bliss of mindfulness and deeper meditation. There is this for the real heart of generosity, the true virtue of generosity as well, and so many other aspects of the path. That's our birthright as human beings, to be able to know and experience that. And if we pass away with everything all tied down tightly, and our heart is also tied down tightly, then what life? What life? So I would strongly encourage, I don't mean living unwisely. Not at all. I mean as part of developing a wise life, a life of wisdom.